It's a real schmozzle, people, now managing all of these. Being a famous internet human being, I don't want to say celebrity because I think that there's a metric by which we achieve celebrity status. And I don't think I've reached that yet, but I think once you hit about 300 followers, which I have proudly, I think you get to the point where there's a lot to manage. And in this case, a lot is the various streaming platforms I'm trying to get to. Now, is my video? Okay, my video's good. We're going to take a sip of coffee. We're going to wish each of you viewers currently here a good morning, which is easy because there's 0 currently. I'm just going to check the status of these streams. You are live, view on YouTube. And then also, you are live, view on Facebook. Okay, cool. Bring this here. Yeah, oh, I can see myself on YouTube. Looking good. And then I can see myself on Facebook, also looking good, righteous. Okay, so I'll get the sillies out of the system. I'll work that through. I've got my friend Reko Vitae here to talk shop today. We'll bring him on in a little bit. First, I'll provide an update. I might plug something. You know how I do. It's been a busy last couple of weeks. We being Bay and I, we ran our intensive, which ran in the last week of September. So we were, what were we? I think from the 23rd to the 26th. Banger of certified. The reviews are in. And the intensive was called a certified banger. That's most of the feedback we got. We ask people for feedback. We say, you know, what should we improve? What would you like more of? What would you like less of? All these sort of questions. And for each sort of opportunity people had to give feedback, most of them just wrote certified banger. So certified banger of an intensive. If you missed it, you'll never have the opportunity to have an experience like this ever again. That's gone forever. But we will have one in May that will maybe not be a certified banger, but it'll probably be something else worthy of a title like that. The things that really contributed for me, it's interesting. Oh, there's our little house pooch, because these events, they're set up a couple of ways. First is that we have a year-long program called The Forge. And if you've watched this show at all, you've probably heard about The Forge. Reko's on our leadership team. It's a program for coaches and leaders that want to become transformational in their approach. They want to build organizations. They want to create relationships in their lives. They want to lead in ways that do more than just turn the wheel over. They want to actually create transformation by virtue of people being a part of their organization or being in relationship with them. And so that program runs for a year, and we have the intensive at the start and the intensive at the end. And we have 2 intensives, and typically September is a little more of a almost like a slower start, where we are, the team is coming together and forming and getting a feel for how they show up. And then we have a bunch of people from the public come and join. And my experience this time around was that our leadership team kind of showed up almost fully formed. And that's not to suggest there wasn't a bunch to provide them, but really showed up ready to play, eager to support us and co-create this event with us. And then what that did is it created a clearing in which everyone else that was here for this work could really drop in together. So I want to talk super briefly about that idea of a clearing, and then I'm going to talk about Mexico. But before I do that, I'm going to close my door and get the door closing cane. So hang tight for a sec. Hello, Grimby. Okay, there we go. I've got the certified door closing cane. There we go. That's what that's for. We'll set that over here to the side. So this idea of creating a clearing is typically a leadership team for an event puts their focus on the logistics of the event. So anytime an event is run, anytime a meeting happens, you know, et cetera, there's a leadership team putting it on. There goes the cane. And what they do is they make sure, like, is everything that needs to happen happening? Have we got our handle on that? And that's about as far as it goes. And in this work, in ontological or transformational work, we absolutely have to keep an eye on that. But we also want to look at who are we being as a team? Or put a bit differently, like, what is showing up into the space with us? So this would be sort of like, imagine if you showed up into the space and you'd had a bad experience with traffic and you were frustrated with drivers. And as a result, your kind of internal experience was like, man, I hate inconsiderate people. That energetically is going to flow. It's going to get recreated in the space with you. And it's going to have an impact. I want to give a really simple example. Here on the island that I live on, part of life is taking the ferries. We take a ferry to the mainland if we're ever going to go to, Seattle, Vancouver. Anytime you want to fly anywhere, you have to fly off the island and you fly to wherever you're actually going. Growing up here, the ferries are just a part of a life. And it's a beautiful thing. It's this gorgeous 2-hour ride through the Pacific Northwest. It's very scenic. It's very beautiful. It's very peaceful. But the way it goes with the ferries is you drive, you get your ticket, and then you have to wait. And there's often sailing waits. So sometimes you're waiting for an hour or 2 hours for the next ferry to come, blah, 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 blah. It's a big logistical operation. You've got this massive parking lot of cars lined up, multiple ferries leaving for different destinations. And, this BC Ferries, the corporation that runs this whole thing, has to deal with the logistics. And the last time we were there, they have someone on a speaker. And this person on the speaker is so stressed out, it's unbelievable. And what she is doing is spraying her stress over the entire ferry terminal. She's getting angry at people like, car in lane 67, do you not understand? You are meant to be driving in the other direction. Do not do what you, blah, 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 blah. So she's managing the logistics, but her being is showing up and impacting everyone. Everyone is picking up on this stress. And this is what happens when we don't clear a team. So when we sit down for the intensive, we meet with our leadership team and we work with whatever you brought into the space, not because it's wrong, but because it's probably going to have an impact. And we want to check, like, is that actually the impact we want to have? If you're dead set against inconsiderate people because of the way traffic went for you this morning, that might make it really challenging for you to just allow someone else in the room to process something for which you have a judgment that they are being inconsiderate. You might try to correct that behavior. You might try to change it, et cetera, et cetera. You might just have body language that's telling them that how they're being is wrong. So we do a lot of that kind of work. Really, really beautiful event. And I was joking with my team that they were like, wow, you guys hold a lot of energy. And I was saying, like, yep, right up until about 6 o'clock Friday night, and 6 o'clock rolls around and I am out of there and I go home and I really, I shut down. I not like physically shut down, but more emotionally and energetically, I just pull inwards. So we learn to grow our capacity in this work. And we also learn to really honor our well-being and what we need, which takes me to the second part of what's been going on over the last couple of weeks for me, which is this past weekend, I was going down with a former client of mine that I partner with for what's called the Mexico Impact Experience. And the way this program works is Randy, my former client and partner in this, he takes a group of about 25 people down to Baja, Mexico. We drive down to Ensenada and then build a house for a migrant family. These are families that have been sold on the kind of the Mexican version of the American dream. So the Mexican dream is you live down south, which is basically purely subsistence-based farming. Like you grow what you can eat and that's life. Life is no different than that. And they're lured north with the promise of money to be made. There's riches to be made, at least more than subsistence. So they drive north, they migrate their families north, and what they discover is there's not actually riches to be made. You end up working in fields, doing really, really hard, agricultural work on a farm in not particularly great conditions. You end up working, 12, 14, 15, 16-hour days. And then a lot of these families, especially when they've initially moved up, are living in effectively like converted horse stables. So, a family of like 5, maybe 6 in maybe a room like I have here with less windows. It's very, it's appalling. And so these families, they work the land, they get paid a meager amount of money, and then usually they can buy a very, very tiny plot of land, very, very tiny, but they can't afford a house. And so these are families that they've proven that they're they're not just looking for a handout, so to speak. That's a bit Western privilege kind of language, but they've invested money into the land. They're ready. They want a home, and so then we build a home for them. And whilst that's happening, what we do is we build the house, and then I coach these people in the evening so that we can support them to really touch what is coming up for them. And I think this part is really valuable, of course, because I'm the one leading it, but also because it's really easy with charitable work to do a couple things. The first thing is to just throw money into the void, give your money to a charity and like, there, I've done my part. And the trouble with that is it doesn't touch you in any way. Or if it does, it's a very small amount and there's no relationship built. It allows us to kind of externalize the problem, sort of like carbon credits do in a way, like I don't have to really put much attention there. I've done my bit. I've given away money, the end. I'm doing good. The problem, I'm doing what I can to solve the problem. And this isn't to villainize anyone doing that, but there's a transactionality to that kind of thing that is different when we actually meet these sort of people, when we actually go and come face to face with it. And the second thing that's really valuable about this approach is that we don't want to have people go down and just have this be like a nice thing that I did for that family. What we are committed to doing is creating an experience for people where they come down, they do something beautiful for another family, and that experience of doing that transforms them, changes the way they view the world, changes the way they experience themselves, changes the way that they're showing up in their lives. And our commitment is along those lines, because if we can affect that kind of transformation, the transformation in you whilst you're helping these other people, then it doesn't just be something that happened that was great in Mexico. It means you come back home and you start to show up different. And that creates ripples, not just down south, but also up here. And up here is where the prosperity is. Up here is where there's privilege and money and stuff. And so if we can start to create that sort of shift, along with you creating some relationship and getting to know the sort of people and the situations and the circumstances they find themselves in, then something really starts to transform. And along these lines, we're trying to take it out of charitable impact kind of entrepreneurship or giving being something you do for other people, and instead have it merge so that it's something you do because it grows you. And if we can integrate those two things, then charity, then impact movements, stuff like that actually becomes self-sustaining, because it stops being like, yeah, I have the space where I can help that other person. It becomes, of course I would do this. Why wouldn't I do this? This is benefiting me. So we call this approach kind of like enlightened self-interest, where you are getting something out of this. There is a payoff for you, but it benefits the rest of the world. And that's the sort of work that really becomes self-sustaining in the world. And it's why a lot of I keep forgetting, I guess, not nonprofit, NGO, charity, that sort of stuff often can kind of like, it has a rise and fall cycle, because it doesn't tend to be very self-sustaining. You have to keep asking people, because they're not really getting that much from doing it themselves, aside from like kind of a good feeling, maybe alleviating some guilt, so on and so forth. So anyhow, certified banger of a trip. I got to use power tools, which is ludicrous that anyone would give me power tools. Got to meet this incredible family of 5. And I will tell you, there's this one kid who was like a little teacher for me, because this little bastard, every time I'd be painting something, he'd stick his hand in the paint and he'd run up and slap me on the back. Or like I was painting something white, and then he'd get his grimy paintbrush that had been in 5 different other colors of paint, and he'd be like helping me paint. And then there's all this blue and gray and black on the door that I'm trying to paint white. And what I could really see when that was, there's a limit to how much fun I can have when it's time to get work done. I can have fun like X amount, but then once that's done, the fun is over. And here I was sort of frustrated at this kid for fucking up my shit and not doing it right. And doesn't he know I'm doing this for, all of this nonsense. And it's like, dude, Adam, what's the rush? You got nowhere to be. This door will get painted one way or the other. Like, you could take a breath and you could slap this little kid on his own back. Give him some pain. So there's a lot of opportunities for teaching in this. Anyhow, enough about me. Coffee time, though. Okay, I'm going to talk really briefly about my guest, and then we'll bring him on. So Reko and I met initially through his brother, and I think we met through another friend of ours called Evan Meyer, who some of you may know. Evan's got quite a following on Instagram and probably other places in the internet. I met Evan through some men's work I was teaching long ago. And so Reko, like initially we got into a conversation because he was interested in the forge, and then that like led to one thing and to the next thing. And so he's now in his 3rd year with us, and we're going to talk about some of his experience through that process, talk a little bit about the intensive, we'll talk about what he's up to in his life and all of that stuff. So Reko, get yourself off mute. I'm going to add you to the stage. Kerpow. Yes, bring that mic in. That's the classic Reko pose, is the mic. You don't keep it near the mouth. You move it in and out. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
What do you have? Is it one of those like things with a plate that screws into your desk? Is that how you've got this setup working?
No, it's like a little clamp on the side here. It's like a little.
Let me see.
How?
Oh yeah, that's a good looking clamp.
Mm-hmm.
I need one of those. Because this is a base, but it's a little delicate. And if I get excited and bump it, it makes static, and you just seem much more at ease moving your mic around than I feel.
Yeah, I'm flexing my stable arm boom arm.
Yeah. So transformed when it comes to microphone usage.
Did I lose you?
No, well, I can hear you, but maybe you're in and out. Have you? Oh man, the first time we tried to record this, Reko had some weird VPN stuff that left us feeling like we were on long distance. And is that what we've got now, Reko? Can you hear me? Test.
I can hear you. Yeah, I don't have anything else running. It's just this call, which is probably maxing out my computer still.
Okay, great. Well, we'll try this. We'll see. It does seem like there might be a bit of a delay, but we'll go a little bit of the ways and see how this goes. And if not, then I think what we'll do is we'll record together in Costa Rica, because we're going to be there in January. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. So maybe like as a starting point, can you share a little bit about like how did you even find your way into any of this work? Like how did you find your way into ontological work? Obviously you joined the Forge, but how did that even show up on your radar and like, you know, anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been kind of more in the like healing arts for the past decade. I got into like breath work and massage and actually like men's work. So I've been doing all that for quite a while.
How did you start down that
path? Actually, well, it was Manu went down, did a couple of yoga teacher trainings in Costa Rica.
Manu being your
brother? Me, yeah, Manu, my brother. Which to me I thought was like pretty cool, but you know, didn't know anything about yoga. Also never really felt called to like teach yoga, even after I started practicing for myself. But then he did a breathwork training, and I was like, okay, this looks pretty cool. It also looked like something I really wanted for myself, was like my main interest. And like anything I end up doing in teaching is something that I start out by wanting for myself. So so I found a teacher, went and did a couple trainings with him, and you know, I got so much life-changing transformation just from, you know, 2 12-day retreats. I was like, all right, this stuff's pretty magic. And I just really found that like what I wanted was a greater and greater experience of life, or less and less inhibited by my own fears, my own you know, stories, my own traumas. I wanted to kind of pursue what could be possible in the sense of who I could be in the world, because the way I was living, especially, you know, in my early 20s, was I hate the world. I'm terrified of it. I have no agency. And, you know, all these insecurities and stories I have about myself are are the reality I'm living in, and I don't want that anymore. So
Okay, hold on.
what's
You have to
possible beyond that?
tell us about hating the world. Like elaborate on that a little bit, because that will feel very healing for me to hear someone else share about that.
Yeah, well, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of that there. That didn't really change too
Right.
much. No, I mean, coming right out of high school, I was super disenchanted with like any sort of institution or system, right? So that's government, that's education, medicine, everything was just, this is all bullshit. This is all crap. This is all against the human soul. And, uh, you know, I'm personally oppressed by the world is how basically I was living. And so everything was a rebellion, right? I didn't have any desire to create anything because I was rebelling against everything. And once I started to get into like the healing arts and experience, you know, real deeper connection with my body, with my breath, um, that all started to like open up this sense of, well, what if I were to create something, what would it be?
Mm. Interesting. So the sort of like a counter or, against like counterculture against mainstream was a little bit the like any sort of established premise or structure or whatever felt like something to rebel against or fight against or push back against. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
Uh-huh.
even like being smart with my money was something that I was rebelling against to my own detriment. Like all this rebellion ended up being I was rebelling against my own self-interest.
That makes total sense. Okay. So you go, you do breath work, you like take these courses, and then sounds like that had a pretty profound impact on you.
Yeah, it was incredible because I mean the biggest thing that shifted my outlook on life was meeting my teacher. His name is Giten. The style that he teaches is called biodynamic breathwork. It's kind of this very somatic based system that includes a lot of body work and like he was a body worker for about 15 years before he got into breathwork and then
Mm,
kind of developed his own system. So meeting him was actually just as profound as the receiving of the breathwork, because here was a man who had built something for himself that was transforming people's lives, that was healing, that allowed him to be, what I saw is just a really deep and centered man expressing his gifts in the world.
mm,
And up until that point, I didn't really have a lot of examples of that. I'd had examples of good men who worked really hard. Um, but that didn't inspire me because I don't want to
right.
work really hard. And I don't want to work really hard in a system that I'm trying to rebel against. So
Yes.
um, yeah. So there was this experience of, all right, it's possible to be a version of myself in the world that I don't yet know what it is, but I can see that I could actually unfold into a man that contributes to the world and contributes to creating a world that I'm inspired by.
So he kind of like modeled or was living like a path that sounds a little bit something other than just rebelling against. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. All right, so you do that and then what? Everything's good?
Then it was
You've
smooth
just been this
sailing. My money
column of
problems went away. Yeah,
right. You've just been a column of light ever since.
that's right. No, the next thing is so Manu and I started running breathwork events, and what we found was we were getting a really high turnout percentage wise of male participants,
Mm,
which is unusual for that kind of event. Uh, like typically, especially in a place like Victoria, you get at a any sort of transformational or embodiment spiritual type of event, you would typically see a slightly higher, if not much higher ratio of women to male participants. And we were getting kind of in the like 60 to 70% male participation.
mm,
And what we were also kind of sitting in men's groups at the time and exploring that. So what we decided to do is do um, breathwork events just for men, just to see if that would draw in uh, a bigger audience or like a bigger following of men who are seeking this kind of work. and just kind of
Yeah.
build like this foundation where if men are looking for healing work, they know they can come to us. The if the light's weird, the sun is kind of moving to the clouds.
It's like you're at a rave.
Yeah. If it's an issue, I can close the blinds a little
Yeah,
better.
you're all good.
Okay. So yeah, we just started doing breathwork events for men, and it was really like surprisingly successful. The turnout was great. Um, the repeat the men coming back was also really noticeable. Like we started to see the
Mm.
same guys. They started to ask for more. Like when are you doing the next one? So what we ended up doing from there is realizing men coming out of isolation into this transformational space is great, but then they leave the transformational space and go back into isolation. They don't really have any support structures for them. So we decided that the best structure would be a weekly men's group. That way they could stay in connection with each other, and not just be like working with us one on one, which we weren't doing at the time. So we started these men's groups, and that was actually where we really got the opportunity to listen to men as to what they need. And you probably see this all the time with social media or like in the coaching realm, or I see it a lot in like the trauma kind of trauma work that people do. Is there's a lot of telling people what they need.
Yes, indeed.
And that's really common with men's work too, is like, this is what it means to be masculine, this is what men need, this is what women need, this is how you show up. And I just had the question, what do men need? That's where we started. And we just found that question never really was finished answering. Men kept coming with new answers. And so this men's group became this like exploration for us as to, how can we serve men more powerfully? What's the next layer that men are willing to go into and unfold into? And it really grew, and it was very transformational for us being the ones facilitating, because that question also helped us to really expand and push our limits in how we're supporting men.
What did you learn, anything like surprising or that caught you off guard or even confronting?
Yeah. Lots that was kind of surprising. I guess the one thing that was confronting was it was particularly challenging to support fathers, because I'm not a father, and
Yeah.
I also wasn't drawing in a lot of fathers. So it was kind of like, if you were a dad and you were looking for support as a dad, we were a bit limited in that, just life experience, and but that just required being like honest, like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking from experience here. I'm just here to support you. And then ultimately, it's the same thing for like marriage. I'm not married, so life experience in that regard doesn't necessarily contribute to like, here's what worked for me. But
Yeah.
at the same time, that can be really powerful, because now I'm not trying to give advice from experience. I'm just supporting
Yes.
them to come to their own conclusions and decide what's best for them.
Uh-huh.
So that was something that kind of, I guess, was a little bit a bit confronting, in the sense where I had to approach it more humbly.
Yeah.
As a guy, 2 or 3 years younger than me, I can like just point the finger and say, do this, do this, do this,
Yes.
and feel really strong and powerful in that moment. But when someone's 15 years older than me, and they have 3 or 4 kids that are in high school, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be like one-on-one with you here. I'm going to talk to you. What do you need? You tell us how to support you. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's a really powerful place to be as a facilitator. It's also really empowering for them.
Yeah. Yeah. To just, I was doing some work over the weekend with someone, and we were in a circle of, 20 whatever people. And I paused to ask the group because I'd been in conversation with this person for a bit, and I'm sure you've had this experience too. I was asking the group, like, how many people want to just give this person the answer? And like a bunch of hands went up, and I was like, me too. And then he shared, and he was like, I really want to just be given the answer. And that's the dance we're often in when we're, supporting people with anything is we yearn for the answer. If only there was an answer. What's the right way for me to turn my handlebars on the bike so I don't fall off? And we all want to give advice because it feels so good and teaching so appealing to the ego. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't really we don't really realize how challenging it is to just be with people as they process something without giving them an answer, without nudging them, without pushing them along, because we don't realize how often we nudge and give answers and subtly try to manipulate people to do the thing we think that they should do that'll be really good for them, and so on and so forth. Did you have like moments where you were sort of brought to awareness of your own tendency to do that, or did that come later?
Yeah. Well, it's uh the thing that I really noticed is there's some guys who are like, um but there's just some people that are much more reliant on the advice of other people. Like they
Mm.
don't think they can come to their own conclusions, so they will ask before even like knowing what they're asking. It's like, well, what's your opinion on what I should even ask in this moment?
Yes.
That's um and
That's a
that I
hilarious
found
one.
it's actually those people where it's easiest to step back from wanting to give advice. It's usually the people
Mm-hmm.
that have the most resistance that I find I want to give them advice because, they got their wall up, so it must be good. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I know the thing that will help them, and they're resisting that, and that creates more temptation for me to want to really apply the pressure and make sure they get the advice. But someone who's uh, more eager for it and not willing to explore themselves, not willing to come to their own conclusions. I usually find with those people, I'm like, all right, I actually can be fine taking a step back. I've been invited to share the advice, but now I'm going to let them come to an answer first.
Mm. All the people you work with are taking notes right now. They're like, okay, great. Here's the secret code to get Reko to provide you the answer, the golden wisdom that he has. But I
That's
love how
right.
you distinguish that. Like, you've got when people are kind of obviously yearning, please just tell me the answer. It's upfront. Like, we can see it's right there. Whereas that other type of client, it's sort of the ones that show up, when you're doing coaching work, where they're like, all right, well, do your thing, buddy. Like, coach, monkey boy. And
That's right.
you try to offer, and there's just such a defensiveness, a guard up. And you didn't use these words, but for me, what that elicits is like this desire to prove my value, like a real need to, like, oh, I need to do something. I need to make something happen. I need to transform this person, instead of being willing to sit with, like, one, not very much is happening in this conversation. And then if I can get that altitude to be like, hey, I noticed not very much is happening in this conversation. Is that how you want this to go? But that's really tough, because in order to ask that conversation, we have to move through those layers. And I'm with you. It's very challenging not to just, all right, I'm going to shove this pill down your throat, and you're going to take it, and you're going to transform.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of leeway in the men's work type of support where uh like we're granting each other, I should say, so much um license to just challenge each other.
Yes.
And there's almost a expectation of that in regards to men's work, because I think part of the thing men want is to be held to a high standard,
Yeah.
by other men that they trust and they value that input from. But what often happens is that now I'm holding you to my standard, and I'm challenging you on what I see for you, not what you see for you. And um, that was something that I didn't really register until getting into, well, actually the Forge, because the ontological layer of supporting people that I wasn't really present to was that, um, even though I'm not giving advice, I'm still projecting onto somebody what
Mm.
I think is best for them. even
Mm.
subtly, even if someone, says they're going to do something and they don't, now we have this structure in place where we kind of make them feel guilty and emotionally beat them up a little bit, even though it's like, hey, we're here to support you, but we're really going to challenge you to do that thing because you said you would. And now, what's the shadow? And here we're going to all just like mirror your shadow to you and hold that in the space. Which, long term, I think the impact is that it really wears people out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like we've we talk about this idea that transformation requires equal parts love and rigor. And in the divine polarity realm, I think of that being equal parts masculine and feminine, the at least the stereotype perhaps. And in some ways the way these energetics are held, the masculine energy tends to be very like, fix my glasses here. Jinkies, a disaster.
Actually, keep talking. I'm just going to close my blinds, but I can hear you.
Yes,
So.
yeah, you bet. So you can get yourself sorted. So yeah, like we at least often relate to the masculine energy as rigorous. It's holding you to account. It's putting the thing in your face. And the feminine energy is loving and kind and sort of like it's perfect however you're showing up in the moment. And I think a lot of men's work, to your point, Reko, can be some of the wisdom of it is this idea sort of like the jury, in jurisprudence and the legal realm, there's this sort of idea that there's a inherent wisdom to just 12 lay people. If you can bring 12 people together, put a case in front of them and leave them to make their decision, there's a wisdom that we trust in that. And I think that there is some real wisdom in that way of holding it. And I think men's work kind of operates on a similar principle. Like, you don't have to train people deeply. You don't have to, there's work to do to help them embody their masculine. But from that place, getting a bunch of men to give you some feedback just of like, hey, what's the gut shot feel of how Adam's showing up? There's going to be some wisdom in that. But I do find the flip side is it can become very biased or overbalanced towards the rigor side of things, where there's sort of, like you said, like projecting, well, here's how I'm holding myself. I don't have the awareness of this, but like you should always do what you say you're going to do. And then I'm unwittingly projecting that story about how a man should be onto you. And that becomes your reality too. Kind of get these pocket echo chambers a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then I also see too, like the opposite. I was having the kind of opposite experience a lot before starting my own men's group, where there wasn't necessarily defined leadership. Like nobody was running the group. It was like guys coming together in agreement to support each other, and then there was no rigor. There was no commitment, and we're all just talking about our feelings and creating this feeling soup that we're all just basking in, and nothing moves, nothing changes. And we all actually feel a little bit worse afterwards because all the worst feelings came up, but they didn't really move and nothing, no new orientation was created. So we go back into the same pattern.
Yeah, nice. Like leadership through democracy almost a little bit. And like, we don't know where we're going or what direction we're taking. So we'll just get stuff into the space. And I guess this is doing a thing. I hope.
Yeah. It's like a really, really sad kumbaya.
I love it. Okay, so describe like your first year in the Forge a little bit. Like you come, you join us. Tell me, maybe you can share sort of like what was your expectation versus your experience.
Yeah. Something I didn't really distinguish until my second year was the way I typically go about things is to just jump in without knowing why I want it or what I'm looking to get, like not having much intention, which is definitely what I did with the first year. And part of the reason for that is that I don't really want to be convinced not to do something once I've decided, which isn't a great strategy for me. I've learned that actually, though sometimes it leads to some making good decisions, it doesn't lead to getting the most out of that decision I've made. So the first year I left a lot on the table and I was kind of disoriented and confused about it. But I knew that there was something there because I was a guest client for AC, accomplishment coaching, a couple years before. And though I didn't get a ton out of that as a client, mostly because I was, working with a new coach every month, and it was a bit like being put through a machine. I came
Yes.
out the other end relatively untransformed, but realizing that coaching had something to it.
Mm.
Um, and then I'd worked with one of the coaches from that program for almost a year,
Oh,
Christine
cool. I
Tabor.
don't think I knew that.
Yeah, she reached out to me after and was like, "Let's do some coaching," and I was pretty gung ho because she was definitely one of the ones that I got the most out of working with as a guest client. So, um, and then I had talked to her about the Forge, and I talked to, yeah, you mentioned Evan. My roommate Alex was also already planning on
Mm.
doing it. So there was a lot of feedback that whatever the Forge was, didn't really know when I signed up, but whatever it was, there was something to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I dove in. I don't even think you and I had a real conversation, just to email back and forth. And then getting into it, uh, I was like, okay, what is this coaching thing? How, like, I've got experience
What have
working
I
with
chosen
people.
into?
Yeah, exactly. I've got all this experience working with people. It shouldn't be that hard. And the first half, I was like, man, I have no idea what this is. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm also
Let me
terrified to
pause
ask
you
them
for a sec
questions.
because I want to speak to something you distinguished for yourself, which is how you be about starting stuff. Because I think there's so much value in there before we come back to what you were just starting to share.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right, the strategy is sort of like, run and jump off the diving board because that way it's like strike while the iron's hot, get out over the water and then, deal with whatever happens on the other side. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm concerned that any sort of resistance will create inaction for me. So I have to take the jump into it before I feel the resistance, commit to it before I feel
Yes.
the resistance, and then ignore any resistance that comes up later.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Like even if the resistance is your own.
Yeah, no, it's always gonna, yeah, the resistance, like my own resistance, ignore that because I've already decided.
Yeah.
And I'm not selling anyone on this strategy. It does not work. It's not a great plan of action.
Well, there is some like I mean, first of all, I wanted to underline that because I think a lot of people there's two um main ways I see people operate with their fear. One is uh, we get stopped by it and we just sort of never do the thing, never do the thing, never do the thing. And then the other one is what do they call it? Like counterphobic, I think maybe, or prophobic, where we run towards our fear and we like, okay, it's scary. I'm gonna push through as quick as I can. Like that's my default too. And then get myself into it because at least once we're in it, we're in it. And then the fear didn't stop us. Then we have to deal with the fear, but we're already over the edge. And like every way of being, I find there's benefits to that in that you kind of like we end up like, well, I'm doing the thing, but then at least for me, part of the consequence is that I can often end up doing something but being deeply disempowered by it. Like I'm here, yeah, but fuck, why am I here? This isn't what I wanted. And then I'm sabotaging myself or others or undermining what I've chosen or anything like that. What's like one of the consequences you notice for yourself through this pattern?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest cost is that I'm a real slow start because I spend the first, I in the Forge, I spent the first few months just kind of like figuring out, okay, what am I even in? And, I didn't get any information that would have been supportive first. Um, I didn't ask you, okay, what do I need to do or know to show up prepared? It was kind of like, I'm going to be there on the first call. Here's my deposit.
Yeah.
Um, that was really it. And then now I showed up on the first call. I'm like, what are all these, new terms that I didn't, know about? Um, and that's not to say like that stuff's not explained well. It's that I'm showing up in a state of disorientation. So my
Yes.
first my first thing I'm doing is like trying to gather myself as opposed to just receiving what's shared and listening to the conversation. Um I'm also, not prepared for the trajectory of the Forge as well. Like, okay, I'm gathering myself and where we are right now, but I also don't know where we're going, I don't know, what my orientation is. So am I going towards a target? Is the forge going towards a target? Um, and I think that leads to me really relying on other people to, kind of like we're saying with the person who's asking for advice, like
Yeah.
give me the answers, give me the answers. I'm kind of in that position where now um I don't know where to look within myself to create that orientation. I'm looking for other people to tell me what to do and where to go.
And are you looking for it verbally or more subtly, like what are they doing? How are they showing up? Therefore, that's the way for you to follow. Like, how does that? What is it you look for in specific?
Yeah. Well, it certainly doesn't come from me asking questions.
Mm,
That's like um it's mostly like I'll just pick up what I can get, right? And that was just a lot how the first year went compared to the second year and definitely compared to the third year now so far as first year was really like, well, I'll take what I can get from this
yeah.
program. Um and the I just had a thought that disappeared. It'll come back, but um I don't have a target that I'm working towards. And so, part of the forge is like have a project and I'm like, I'll just come up with something then, and I'll see how much progress I make,
Yeah.
That was, um, that was how I related to, my project the first year was and it's kind of my default to how I relate to projects still, that's
Yeah.
what I'm noticing coming up this year is I set a target and I'll see how good I can do. Um, but then the thing is, because I stepped over all this potential resistance or just questions that could come up in even deciding to join the forge, um, now all the resistance comes up to the forge as I'm in it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I got into first couple months of being in the forge and, like for example, Darren is telling me, "Hey, try asking these questions in a coaching call." And I'm like, "I don't want to." It's really, really basic support that she's providing me, and I'm resisting it because, all that resistance was something that I had to that was wanting to come up in my decision to join. But now that I've
Yes.
joined, I'm resisting it as I'm in it.
Uh-huh. That's like some real gold you've provided there that I want to underline, especially for yes, Pongo. What do you need? My dog's just staring at me here. Y'all need some farts? We're good. We're good on farts, buddy. Some real gold for like coaches in particular, leaders too, is the client comes, we're in the conversation with them about working together. They have the strategy around fear that you and I have just distinguished for ourselves, which is cover your eyes, run off the diving board, jump. And the coach, of course, is terrified because they're like, fuck, I got to ask for money. I got to put my own self on the line, is what people are saying yes or no to. I'm nervous. I don't want to be pushy. And the person is just like, sounds good. Let's start. And the coach is just like, hallelujah. Finally, this person said, yes, I didn't have to fight with them. Oh my God, everything's good. And I'm going to be a thriving success. And then what happens is, to your point, 3 weeks later you start and then all of the resistance shows up. Everything that didn't get spoken to, didn't get a place to be explored, comes forward. And I think that's really one of the huge impacts of, well, I mean, we were just distinguishing it, like we get into the thing and then we're sabotaging the thing. And so it's sort of, I find what happens is I get there and I'm like, oh, this isn't actually the thing I want. And then I bail out if left devices. And then from having bailed out, I'm even more resistant the next time. And then because I'm even more resistant the next time, I'm even more inclined to cover my eyes and run off the diving board because I don't want to listen to any of that resistance because I know it's going to stop me. And this is the thing I really have to do this time. And blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I noticed that a lot with my men's group too. I had pretty simple enrollment process. The commitment was beginning was 6 weeks. So you had to commit for a minimum of 6 weeks to join the group. We would have one conversation over the phone. Um, and I could generally tell based on that conversation how long someone would want to stay for. Um, and it was, if they were not asking me any questions and they were just ready,
Mm.
all ready to join, there's a good chance that they were going to stay for, maybe 3 to 6 months. But if
Yeah.
there was someone where we talked for like a good hour and a half and they had, lots of questions for me and, um, just curiosity about how I even lead the group, then, those are the people that stayed for like 3 years.
Yeah. 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 I find that too. I find when people are interested in an event, the intensive, the forge, the retreat, the whatever, some of them get on the phone and they have a lot of logistics questions. And then, we get 45 minutes through an hour long scheduled call and they're like, well, I don't have any questions. And almost to a T, I'm like, these people probably aren't gonna come forward. The people that are really like, yeah, I think this person is probably a pretty strong candidate for this kind of work are the people that have concerns in this space. The people that are like, hey, what about this? Or, I'm worried that this, or, you know, I want to believe in coaching, but I feel like it's a bunch of bullshit. That sort of conversation. Those are the people that I find go really far because they're getting their stuff. They're willing to have their stuff on the table and explore it. And that's the heart of this work is, hey, I'm not going to try to step over it. I'm going to explore my stuff. I'm going to allow it to be in the space. And it's such a gift when that's there because then we all get to look at it and learn from it. And it's part of the magic of a group, I find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say like at least 50% of my motivation for joining the Forge in the first place was so that it would be something I could say I did. It's like
Amazing.
that's that's now my qualification. My credibility is I did this thing.
Yes.
Was I transformed by it? What did I get what I wanted? Those are irrelevant.
Yes.
But I did this thing and I can now say that I did it. So
So good. Okay, share a little bit. These are some things I'd love to hear you share about Reko. I'd love to hear you talk about sort of like what you've gotten in terms of like the leadership team and any difference or like how you notice it starts to shift for you as you play at higher gradient. I'd love to talk a little bit about you didgeridooing at the intensive, and then I want to create some space to talk about like whatever you're leading, what you're creating in the world. So let's go to the first one first. Like what have you found distinct as you've done a second year and then now a third? Like what are you noticing is different? What are you present to in terms of what you see in other people? Anything along those lines that you want to share?
yeah. Going into the first year of the leadership team, so my second year in the Forge, um, right off the bat, the first thing is the word team, right? Like before even the leadership aspect, there's a strong sense of now I'm part of a team. Whereas year one, it's like I'm part of this large group and I'm being held by this
Yeah.
group. But now the team aspect is I'm building relationships with people that uh, really, they're going to be a reflection of my input or like what I'm choosing to
Mm-hmm.
create there. So, for example, um, definitely at the beginning, I was a little bit more like leaning back from that aspect, more focused on what can I get in terms of my leadership. But I noticed that some of the other participants were much more team oriented and reaching out outside of the group calls or offline, not even through the Circle app that we have as a team. They were messaging me on Facebook and WhatsApp and checking in,
Ugh.
asking for extra calls. So annoying.
Ugh.
Yeah, you know who you are.
Yeah.
um, but uh, but they were doing it from a place of not just like casually, hey, what's up, that here's here's what I did on the weekend, um, but looking for support for themselves, so really being like a demand for what they want, um, which is something that I don't have innately as a skill.
Mm.
I'm very very like reserved when it comes to asking for something from somebody, like wanting them to help me with something. I'm much more like I'll figure it out on my own and then I'll come back and tell you about it. So
Same.
having people like come to me and say, hey, do you have time for an extra call this week? At first I was like, oh, it's kind of a weird thing to sure, like I'll be nice. But
Mm-hmm.
then throughout the year I started to build the kind of relationships where um, we would have agreements that we're just going to talk every week. But then it became something where if I'm not having that conversation with them, um, like I notice a shift in how I'm being.
Mm.
And there's just these sort of, anchors in my week and my schedule where I'm getting resourced by other people. And that aspect of team was really great because it wasn't my previous idea of team was like we're building something together, so we just agree on what we're each going to do individually and we go do it and then we come back and we report on that.
Kind of like a group
um,
of individuals.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the forge it was like, well, I'm not even really responsible for the forge, so you know my relationship to team is entirely individual. I'm here to get what I'm
Yeah.
here to get. um, and
Just more
I think
so.
on a
I'll do it even more so the second year.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, I get an extra call every week, so I get even more. um, Yeah, so I guess what I'm pointing to is that uh, there's a way of relating to this idea of team that was pretty new to me, and it required other people to even have that. Like, I mean, that goes without saying. You can't be a team by yourself. But I've been working with Manu for past 8-10 years in
Yeah.
business together, making stuff. Um, but the relationship we have as biological brothers and roommates is something where there's all this unspoken part of our relationship where we we cohabitate, we engage with each other just kind of in all these different energies. But when it comes to actually um working with people outside of Manu, I relate to people as totally separate, completely individual. And it was actually, one of the other members of the leadership team said at one point, like, talked about all the friendships that they've made in the forge. And it hadn't really even registered to me that like that's what was happening. It was more that these are like colleagues or people I know, but to
People I
them they were seeing
tolerate.
this totally people who rub up against all my sore spots and
Yeah.
get on my nerves and um, poke me in the side every week. But the the experience for them was like uh, that's now creating this communal experience, this group of friends. And um, yeah, it was almost a little bit heartbreaking to realize how much I was removing myself from something that they were actively trying to create. And like that that resistance I had to it was so innate that I didn't even realize I was doing it.
That's
So
brilliantly said.
yeah, the first year was really opening for me in that sense, where I wasn't just showing up for me anymore. I was showing up for other people,
Mm.
um, but not from that place that like now I have so much to offer people. I'm going to show up just for them. It was this space where I could still receive everything I came for myself, and even more by the fact that I'm supporting other people to come what they came for.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I remember one sec. Excuse me. Jason sharing in the comments, by the way, I love that distinguished shift in relationship to team, Reko. He says very relatable. When
Hmm.
I first started in my training with accomplishment coaching, the program that you were, what do they call it? A practice client,
Yeah, guest client.
guest client. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Um, right out of the gate, they're like, look, part of this program is we're going to support you to create clients, as we do in the Forge too. And the way they did it was each month, starting on month one, they're like, okay, who's going to lead this client creation game, as they'd call it, meaning holding the space for everyone to create clients. And we would all stare blankly at each other. And then I think I was like, well, I'm a project manager slash lawyer. I will lead. And you get up and then you ask everyone like, what are you going to declare you're going to create as a result? And of course, everyone's like, I don't know. We'll see what I get, which isn't a declaration. And it's the most fucking annoying thing in the world because you're like, why can't all of your stuff gets driven up? Why can't people just say a number? Or what does it even matter? Just say any number and who cares? That's not a declaration either. That's just trying to get someone off your back. And as you practice with this stuff, it's annoying because it's driving up our resistance and it's forcing us to confront the patterned ways of being that we've learned to bring to the table to get, a job done or to do team or whatever it is, which to your point is often quite innate, quite invisible, and gets us X distance, but no further. And so for me, it was sort of like, I got up there and I was like, all right, let's all just agree. Like I was basically like, we'll split the difference. We'll all get 2 clients. Are we all agreed? Great. And then I turned it back to the people leading the program. They're like, okay, do you want some feedback, Adam? Like, no, not really. Let's move on.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I love the way you describe that, and the sort of like discovery process that can come forth from that. That's cool.
Yeah.
What's something that's been like maybe challenging to move through or to face or experience or and it doesn't have to be something that's resolved. You're welcome to share anything, but like just something that you've kind of gotten the opportunity to work with by virtue of the structure we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, first thing that comes to mind is the focus on breakthroughs is the thing that I find the most challenging because one is I have to know what my own breakthrough is, which is such a mind-boggling experience to think about. Like, what is the thing that I am trying to transform into, or what's possible for me outside of my own experience of life? It just doesn't compute. So
like a caterpillar ideating the idea of a butterfly when it has no capacity to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like a cocoon that I'm supposed to get into. Like, what are you talking about? But also receiving the feedback around what the breakthrough is also then really confronting, because I've gone through the process, which is, can be a pretty vulnerable experience to be looking at, like, where am I holding myself back? Where am I, operating more automatically? Where in life am I like cutting myself off essentially? And then I do all the work to look there and I see something. I'm like, hey, I got it. Right. Very predictably, I got something. And then I present that and the feedback is usually, okay, cool. Here's what we see for you. Or here's, does that seem like maybe you're just trying to fix your problems and create a sense of freedom from, just like my breakthroughs in having total control over my life, right? And that's really the undertone of usually what I discover for myself is if I have total control over my life, then I'll be free. And
yes,
I find really nice sounding ways to describe that sound like a breakthrough. And nobody else on the team buys it. They're all like, hey, that's really predictable for you. Here's what we see. And then so that's been the challenging part for me every year is one, trusting that everyone, well, knowing that everyone sees me and I'm not that slick, it's all very on display. But then trusting that everyone is holding that with grace and actually wants to support me to create what I want in life. Very, very confronting, very challenging, and also very beautiful, because it's not often, there's not many places in my life where I can like fully trust that.
Yeah.
I can, trust that my friends still love me in spite of my flaws. I can trust that my family still loves me, but I don't necessarily rely on them to be the sort of catalyst for my own growth and transformation. So, breakthroughs have been a really interesting thing to add to, like we've talked about kind of my past and healing arts and men's work. The concept of a breakthrough, though, has been, really groundbreaking for me, because now there's actually a relationship to transformation, which is one, not just healing and fixing. Like, I still think healing is a component of transformation, but it usually comes from there is the problem here, and we're going to like address that and resolve that and fix that and all, if there's a trauma, you heal the trauma.
Yes.
But if there's a breakthrough, it's actually something, quite distinct. I won't necessarily give a full explanation, but yeah, it was a very uh, transformational idea in itself. Where now I'm thinking about my own growth and my own transformation differently. But then now having the opportunity to relate to people from a place of being seen in all of that and supported in all of that, and really trusting people to um, help facilitate that. And because transformation lies way outside of my blind, or way in my blind spots, it's all back here. I'm kind of walking backwards into it, and people are supporting me as I do that.
Yeah, that's a really good image for it. There's a couple of things you shared that I want to touch on. The first is it's like our friends love us and care for us, but they also don't want to see us have our hearts broken. And um, there's this saying that goes something along the lines of "Don't share your dreams with people that want to protect you from having your heart broken," which I just
Mm.
think is so. There's such like profundity in that because it's so true. Like we really care about our friends. We don't want to see them hurt because then we will empathetically feel their hurt, and we want to protect them from that. And we don't realize that it actually keeps them a little smaller, or I shouldn't say small so much as it keeps them in the status quo instead of going to whatever's next. And I find, man, I love my friends and they're such a great group of guys and they've provided me so much, and I cannot seek transformation. There's transformation that sort of happens incidentally in that group, in the sense like I bump up against one of my friends, he says something that annoys me, I bring it to my coach or I bring it to the forge or whatever, I discover something new and then I can go back there. It's transformation's available in that sense, in the same way that this little kid slapping me with paint can provide transformation, but it's not the same. And I have to be really clear to myself that it's a distinct relationship for good. Because if all of our relationships were like being in the forge or being with a coach, it'd be fucking exhausting. I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I just want to, like, I know this doesn't serve my well-being practice where like I've made a commitment not to eat pizza 7 days in a row. Just let me eat pizza tonight, please. Just don't even
Yeah.
mention it. So that's the first thought. Um, and the second thing you said that I really love is this idea of, breakthroughs and how we're aiming to, create something outside of what we can currently see. And so, how do I even name it? Because it's outside of what I can currently see, and blah 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 blah. I won't talk too much about that, but I love the way you described it, Reiko, where you're like, haha, okay, here's the thing I know it isn't. So I'm not going to do that. I found a new path over here. And usually the new path is just the opposite of the thing you know it isn't. And every time we bring it forward, and every time like everyone is like, we're all super clear that you're doing the same thing. And that's very, it never gets any easier for me. It's always humbling to just be like, ah, shit. Yeah, yeah. Okay. But then what? And to let other people see us in the not getting it, it's certainly for me, and my sense from what you shared is probably for you too. It's like, it's a bit edgy to let people see, like, yeah, I don't have the answer already.
Yeah. But don't worry, I'm going to defend the answer I gave and fight you on it.
Yes, totally. Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
resist a fair bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what you said about heartbreak, I think is really um like, heartbreak is one of those words which sounds really nice. I mean, it sounds terrible, but it also sounds really nice and poetic.
Poetic.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, like describing an experience as heartbreaking, it's moving, right? It's
Yes.
opening. Um and I remember I went to see Stephen Jenkinson give a live talk. Do you know Stephen Jenkinson? He's
No, I don't.
um awesome guy. He calls himself the grief walker, and
Mm.
he's worked in hospice for decades. So he supports
Wow.
people to die and to come to terms with that, and then he supports the family to grieve. And so we went to his talk and got him to sign one of his books. So I went up and introduced myself and said hi. And there's me and a couple guys in my men's group, and and Manu, and we're kind of like these young guys in our early 20s, like, oh, this guy's so cool. He's got a big beard, and he talks really poetically. So I can't remember what how the conversation went. I just remember at one point he goes, "Don't be afraid of heartbreak. If it's a good one, it might just be enough." And was like, that sounds amazing. What does that mean? You know, it might just be enough for what? But but I think that's like at the, you know, the heart of transformation and breakthrough is like you need to be opened up by the experience
Yeah.
to actually allow something new to emerge. And heartbreak is a big part of that, where like if I've lived 30 years of my life a certain way due to a certain fear and created a certain experience for myself that's kept me, you know, closed off from other people, not able to fully connect. Like, you know, I think last year my breakthrough was around impact, and the avenue to impact for me was intimacy, like really allowing people to see
Mm.
me. And um, hearing that was frustrating, and I resisted it, and I came up with all my defenses, and I think I was like, yeah, that's nice. I'll include that, but I like mine, so I'll keep my word. Did that for about 2 weeks before I realized it was completely futile. Um, but the experience of realizing that I'd been living uh, closed off to intimacy, and that's why I'm not having the impact I want in the world is it's heartbreaking.
Mm. Yeah.
And I need to be with that heartbreak in order to actually create that openness for intimacy.
No kidding. I'm there's a group I'm in right now, and the teacher's taking us through. We're reading. The premise of the group is for coaches and leaders: how do we learn to love the world? That's the overarching theme. And so we're looking at grief right now, because a lot of the world is continually in a process of grief, not just because Ukraine or Gaza or whatever, but like just it's the human experience. It's unavoidable. And and so we were reading this really beautifully written, like 12 pages on grief, someone writing about it. And then we were talking about like how are we left, what was our experience reading it, and I was sharing like, yeah, it's really well written, you know, it makes total sense. And then there's another part of me that's like, and fuck you, because all the beautiful poetic words in the world do not create, like they don't get you to the experience. And when you're in the experience, describing grief in all these poetic words is fucking meaningless, because you're just grieving and you're in sorrow and it hurts, and you know. And so the one metaphor I've heard is sort of like this idea of a finger pointing to the moon rather than the moon itself. You know, like our words can intellectually create this remembrance of that thing, but the moment is the moment. And we can't, it won't substitute. It's a shallow comparison. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Tell
Yeah.
me, share a little bit like, what is the deal with the didgeridoo? What's the deal with the didgeridoo? Tell us a little bit about your process with that, and you playing at the intensive, and maybe how that was for you. Anything like that you want to share?
Sure. Um, yeah, I this is a good time for me to bring it up because I actually just was writing out a description of my process because I'm gonna make a video
Nice.
for it and show everyone how I made it, but then also like what it took to make it internally
Yeah.
as well. So for those that aren't familiar with what a didgeridoo is, it's an Australian instrument. It's a big stick, basically, big log, um, and it's hollowed out by termites. And the Aboriginal people would take these hollowed out pieces of eucalyptus. They would um, burn out the dead wood and the termites, and then soak it in water so that it kind of seals up. But then you're left with this nice, you know, tube shaped stick, and then they put a little beeswax on the top so they can seal their mouth on it. It makes really cool sounds, very earthy, very like uh, very shamanic type of experience,
Yes.
just allowing the sound to wash through you. So I've been playing for about 7 years, and I've always wanted to make one. Something about, you know, having my own. It's a pretty straightforward instrument. You know, the manufacturing process, as I just described, is not super complex. You don't have to be a luthier to make something like that. So I wanted to make one.
What
But
was that word you
the other
used? A
reason,
luthier?
yeah, it's like a
What's
person
that
who
word mean?
makes guitars and
Oh, like a
stuff
loop
like that.
maker, kind of? Is that the basis for
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Ah, a luthier. I'm a
I'm
maker
pretty
of
sure
lutes.
luthier still applies to guitars and like mandolins and stuff, but I could be off. anyways, it's not a
Cool.
lute either or a harp.
Yes.
It's no strings.
Tube, big stick.
Big stick. Yeah, I'm basically just a dog who runs around with a stick in his mouth. So I'm sitting here. If you're wondering why I'm looking at it right now, but the actual process itself was one I had to come up with on my own because we don't have hollowed out eucalyptus here, and I wanted to make it out of driftwood because we have a huge abundance of driftwood. And if you
Yes.
live in Victoria and you know what the driftwood looks like here, it's pretty amazing. Like we get all sorts of really cool twisted pieces of wood, and some with like a big root ball on the end. So there's a lot of potential. I was like, I'm going to find a piece here locally, and I'm just going to figure out how to make it from there. So I found the piece of wood. That was the easy part. I actually found like 6 pieces of wood, and then I had them all stacked up for a while. Some of them cracked, and I had to get rid of them. But the one I ended up making it with, I'd had for a good 6 months before I even started to do anything with it. And so I did a bunch of research as to like what are the other ways people can make it, and I just didn't find anything online that didn't involve cutting the whole thing lengthwise. Which not only did I not have the capacity to do that, but I also didn't want this big long seam
Yes.
where I'd cut and glued it back together. I wanted it to be like a really nice. So I had this image for what I wanted to create. I just had no sense of how I was going to do it. And then I just started to think like, what would I actually need to do? Well, I'd have to drill all the way through, right? That's the only real way to keep it the way I want and get the result I want. So I started to look into coming up with, what are the tools I would need? What are the different, like obviously a drill, obviously drill bits, but what are the ones that are actually going to work for me? So I reached out to a bunch of people, asked, what they thought I should do. And interestingly enough, all the advice I got was kind of shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here, but
You are quite, yeah, especially when it comes to advice. Shit.
Yeah. Throw all the advice you ever get away, except for that piece of advice. But a lot of the advice I got was what I can see now was from people's belief or their sort of idea of how things should go, or I just started to see like this person kind of holds it this way, this person kind of holds it that way. I'm just getting the limitations from everyone. I'm not actually getting anything that creates possibility for me. I'm getting all the ways people think I can't do it differently than that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of discarded all of it, and then I came up with my own system. I found the big long extender bits that was going to drill all the way through, and I found the right actual drill bit that was going to cut through the wood most effectively. And then it was I have one friend that helped me with the project because it's kind of a 2-man thing. Someone's got to hold the log while you're drilling through with this 36-inch drill bit on it. So I came to him after I discarded all of his advice, and I was like, here's what I'm thinking we do. And he was like, wow, yeah, we should do it that way. So I was the biggest aspect of the project was actually like enrollment. I guess what's predictable for me is that I take orders from people and I go and follow them. That's how I would do a job. But this was a creative project, so I kind of had to listen to my own desire and let that guide, and then not only enroll myself, obviously, and in the belief that it could happen, or at least the willingness to try. But then going back to my friend and saying, hey, this is actually the way I think we should do it. I know you've got a ton more experience with handiwork than I do, but if we did it this way, do you see that being possible? And he was like, yeah, definitely. I just never would have thought of that. So
cool.
So yeah, I got him on board, and we worked like donkeys until it was finally drilled through, which is a very long process and pretty annoying and labor intensive. It was also the part where I was most likely to abandon the project because it was if I knew I got past that point, then I'd be in the home stretch where like everything else after I'm pretty reliable to do. This was the thing that was very unpredictable.
Yeah.
It was very, um, it was very difficult. It was very new and uncertain, and then it was also the highest likelihood of the whole thing. Like when we were drilling, the didgeridoo is about 6 feet tall, so it's pretty long. So when we're about
Yeah.
3 feet in at either end, the angle that the drill bit goes, it starts to curve a little bit. So the main
Yes.
concern is it's just going to bore through
Burst
this
through.
outside, and we lose the whole thing. We put all this work in for nothing. So um yeah, I'd kind of mapped out this vision as like start to finish, here's how I think I need to go about it, and then this is the point where I'm most resistant because it's most likely to fail, and if it fails I can't really fix it, but also um the reward is so low at that point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like every step I made, once I got drilled through, every step I made, the reward increased. Like I was getting
Yes.
that much closer. And I that's also when I started to post it on social media more too, because I was like, hey guys, look how cool this thing is.
Yes.
Um and it starts to look really cool. Whereas before, I show people, hey, I drilled through this log. They're like, that's a weird thing to do.
Yes.
Why are
Right.
you doing that?
Nice
Yeah.
log.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't look like a didgeridoo, it doesn't sound like a didgeridoo. It's just this big log that's still ugly on the outside. And um so yeah, that was the sort of grind part of things where the passion and the vision were still strong, but there was
Yep.
no real sense of reward for each step
Mm.
I was taking. It was pretty frustrating. And also meeting up with my friend, we could only do like once every 3 or 4 months. So it was a very slow
Slow
process.
going.
So I'd get
Yeah.
like this much deeper in and then have to leave because I'd have to chisel out a little more. They'd get a little bit deeper, and then this log would come home and sit in my entranceway for 3 months while we wait. So it's um
What
I
helped you
imagine
get it
people
to conclusion?
actually, talking to Vicky was the person I talked to. So talking to a friend who is very familiar. She's not a coach, but she's familiar with coaching.
Yeah.
And she was someone who is also taking on a much bigger and much more foolish project than this. So not to compare apples to apples here, but she's taking on a big and foolish project where she doesn't really know how it's all going to go and doing it anyways. So she has this innate belief that it's
Foolish in the
possible. And
best way, but yeah,
yeah,
outside of
totally.
what she can predictably figure out. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Foolish in the sense that most people would not even consider attempting something like that, but amazing in the sense that she's created it. And so um and what she's created is amazing. So she hears that I'm creating something and she's like, "Great, then you have to actually create it. You can't just talk about it and let it sit there." So I loved hearing that, you can imagine. No, not at all. But the other thing she did was she's like, "Well, you have to finish it by this time." And that was for the intensive. So we talked back in
Yes.
July, the intensive's in September. I've spent 2 years on this project already, from like, envisioning it to actually where I was, and she's now giving me a timeline of 2 months to finish it. And I was like, "That's ridiculous. There's no way." Um, but then she just asked like a really simple question, was like, "Well, like based on where you are, what's it gonna take to actually finish it?" And I did some mental math, and at that point I drilled all the way through, but that was it. I just drilled through the log.
Yeah.
And at that point I said, probably about 8 to 10 hours worth of chiseling, and then I just have to sand it and stain it, right? So when I put it in
Mm.
those terms, so it's not that much work, I could easily do that in 2 months. I could
Yeah.
do that in 2 weeks. Um, so then she's like, "Great, so you can have it done by the intensive, and you can bring it and play it at the intensive." I was like, well, 8 hours, but I'm
That's not be
busy,
crazy.
so maybe I'll have it at the next year's intensive. And she's like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's,
I
those
can imagine her
those are
saying
just
that.
excuses." And yeah, she'd be a great coach. She should actually.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that technique. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Um, so it was actually that day I went back home and I started to work on it and chisel it, and I was like, I've got, if I'll give 8 to 10 hours in the next couple weeks, I can do that and see how close I actually am. I put 2 hours in that day, just chiseling out the inside, right? So I'm boring out the inside, making the hole where I drilled bigger to kind of open up the chamber. Put 2 hours in, and I was easily halfway done.
Mm.
So I'd overestimated how much work I have to do, which is very typical for me, making the amount of work I have to do the impossible thing to overcome.
Yes.
Even though it didn't seem all that impossible, it was still way overestimated.
Mm.
So once it was really that just started to shift the evidence that I'd collected, which up until that point was this is a really slow process. It's really labor intensive. I need help. It's annoying. Like this is the story I've created around it.
Yes.
Now I've created some some progress that is really tangible and it wasn't that difficult. Started to shift how I was relating to it. Also,
Yeah.
I got to a point where it was starting to look like a pretty cool project to share with people and tell people I was doing. I was in the home stretch a bit too, where I was like, okay, I think at this point I'm pretty confident I can make this happen. So I'm going to start to share it with people to create a sense of like feedback that this is an exciting experience for me.
Yeah, nice. And then we got to hear you play it at the intensive.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, I was just like sticking with it. Each step at that point was pretty straightforward. I just shaped it, I sanded it, I stained it, and I varnished it, and that was all stuff that wasn't too unreliable for me to figure out it as I went. But yeah, I ended up finishing it like about 10 days before the intensive started. So I made Vicky's timeline, not mine. But I made that happen, and then at that point I was like, okay, this is more than just a cool thing I did on the side. This is actually a bit of a representation of how projects can go. Certainly not how they usually go for me, though there was some like things that revealed how I relate to projects. But crossing the finish line is something I rarely do with a project. I set a target and then I aim for good enough. I aim for like pretty close to that. Obviously with a creative project like this, there's kind of a you finish or you don't. It's not like setting a target of I want to create 8 clients for myself, but I created 5, which is pretty good. I can get away with a lot in that sort of project when there's something tangible. It's a little harder to do that, but I'm also taking this as evidence about how I can relate to projects and as sort of a representation not only of how I can relate to projects, but like how I do and things to notice, this time around with, what's my next project or something that doesn't have as clear of a result that like as uncompromising of a result.
Yeah, beautiful. Are you able to turn your camera? Like, is there any way we can see it?
Yeah, I'll grab it. It's right there.
Yeah, grab that didge. Yeah, so super cool. We got to all hear Reko play at the intensive, and oh man, look at this bad boy. That's so cool.
You can see it all in one shot. Like I said, it's about 6. I don't think I can show you all at once, but
yeah. Show us that. Oh, look at that driftwood end too. That's so cool.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I had to drill all the way through and chisel all the way.
So cool. That thing sounded great too. I was wondering like if there, because there's, anytime we run an event in a hotel room, there's other groups that are like, whatever. CPAC 309 annual general meeting. And I was wondering if they're just hearing us blasting a didgeridoo in our room, wondering what the fuck is going on and why aren't we having that kind of meeting? Our meeting sounds boring.
Yeah, I thought about getting everyone up and doing a rain dance or something, stomping their feet on the ground, getting into like a full ecstatic dance, bass bumping and everything.
Next time. We're coming up on our time. So Reko, what are you up to? Where do people find more about you? Find out more about you.
What am I up to? Yeah, so right now, one of the big things that I'm up to is Manu and I are running a online men's community. It's on School. It's called Becoming Brothers Academy. Super great space. It's super active. We've got group calls every other week. So I'm spending a lot of my time and energy doing that right now. The other thing is, I'm on social media. I share my progress in my didgeridoo, and I share some of my thoughts about coaching there. But that's my big thing right now is the men's community, and I'm one-on-one coaching. And yeah, that's me. So
Do you have a website
if you want no, we don't have a website. We just do social media
Cool.
and school. And yeah, if you want to check me out on Instagram, it's Reko Vitae, REKO VITAE. And I've got all my links to the the school community, my other social media. Also, I think a interview I did, which is if you're into men's work, that's a pretty great interview to listen to as well. So that's all in my bio there.
Nice. So probably it sounds like the best place for people to connect with you is on Instagram through Reko Vitae. And then if they want to work with you one-on-one or join Becoming Brothers Academy or build their own didgeridoo or any of this sort of stuff, that's the place to reach out.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't have Instagram, you can send me a message on Facebook or email rekovitae@gmail.com.
Great. Awesome. I'm not going to put your email in the comments, but I've put Reko's Instagram handle as well as the name of Becoming Brothers Academy. So that's all there. Anything you want to plug before, as we come to the end here?
Yeah, if you're a guy looking for other men to connect with and other men, especially who are, into being creative and making stuff happen in your life, check out Becoming Brothers Academy. And then come to the next intensive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely check out Becoming Brothers Academy. Reko's amazing and his brother's incredible, and their synergy together is really, really cool. They're both on the leadership team in the Forge. They're very deep in their work. So please check their stuff out. Do you guys post videos on your YouTube channel as well? Or is it just a community, or like, can people come and learn about men's work through videos and stuff you post?
Yeah, so on school, we post a lot of stuff there.
Nice.
Social media, we have some posts and stuff. I've got some series that I'm going to be posting soon on social media as well. It's a little less active, but our school, we have a lot of stuff, a lot of content that we're putting out. It's actually a place where we answer questions. So we engage with people more directly there, as opposed to like coming up with our own content and sharing it like on YouTube or Instagram. We pose the inquiry into the space of like, what do you guys want to learn about? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to talk about? And then if people have questions, we'll answer them. We'll create videos and answer them, or we'll bring them on to the next group call. But it's a better platform because we get to engage with people directly, as opposed to kind of trying to guess what people want to hear.
Yeah, broadcasting at them.
Yeah.
Cool. Over here, yeah, definitely come to the next intensive. If you missed the last one, again, life-changing experience. You'll never have that. That's gone forever. The transformation that could have been yours, poof, missed. You'll never get to be that person. But the next intensive is at the end of May. I think it's from May 25th to 29th. And we've got, I think, 5 seats remaining for the Costa Rica retreat. Reko will be there. Manu, his brother, will be there. I will be there. Bay will be there. All the members of the Forge will be there. And for the first time ever, we're opening it up to members of the public. So if you are a member of the public, if you are part of that group called The Public, you can come. It's from January 25th to the 31st. It's in a place called La Fortuna in Costa Rica, which is super, super cool eco hub. We rent an entire rustic eco lodge. We spend a week together. We hang out. We have fun. We eat good. We go on excursions. We do deep transformational work, and it will be a high point for your life. Transformational experience. You'll have a blast. You'll make relationships that will last the rest of your life. You'll find a tribe. There's just so much cool stuff that comes. I really can't speak it all into the space, but it's really awesome, and we're really excited to open that up. So if you want to learn more about that, you can come to the website. I'm going to put in the comments here. evergrowthcoaching.com/the-retreat. It's $4,000 and a steal of the deal. And last thing is, you got to pay for that ticket and the flights there and back, and we cover everything else. So we cover your shuttle to and from the airport, your food, your lodgings, the great times you have, the conversation, all of that's covered. So that or the intensive, the last thing I'm going to say about those two things is that we find the people that come to these events and experience this work are the ones that make time for it. It's not, your life doesn't have a space in it called transformational work I'm going to do sometime somewhere in my life. Your life has enough room for everything that's already in your life and not much else. And so if this is something that is inspiring to you, black that date off in your calendar. Once you make the commitment to come to yourself, sort of like once Reko made the commitment to play his didgeridoo at intensive, you will find that your life will arrange itself around that commitment. And up until you make that commitment, it'll kind of remain in this, that would be a nice thing sometime kind of space. So this is how we create transformation in our own lives, as we make commitments like this. It's going to be amazing. Y'all should come. All right, Reko, you're amazing, and I'm super grateful just that you and I get to partner, and like that you've given us the privilege and the honor of getting to be in this work together for the last 3 years, and I'm really grateful for you coming and sharing like just so articulately and generously and intimately about your experience and your journey, and excited for whatever comes next. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a privilege.
Yes, it has. Yeah, you're very welcome. Feast on my magnanimity.
I won't forget it.
All right, everyone, have an amazing weekend, and we'll catch y'all soon. Bye for now.